They say the older you grow, the more you are cherished, but my truth is that age stripped me of love I thought was uncheckable. I'm Eleanor, born in 1951 in Hobart, Tasmania. Back in 2023, when I was 72, my only son Daniel and his wife, Claudia, abandoned me like discarded rubbish beneath a city bridge. I felt broken, invisible, and unwanted, but then something happened that I never imagined. Today, at 74, living quietly in Sydney, I'm finally sharing this because no mother should ever be silenced by shame. If you're listening, drop your country below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my story so others can find courage. The night Daniel told me to leave his house was cold enough that I could see every breath puffing out in small, desperate clouds. He had once been the little boy who clung to my skirts, begging me never to let him go. Yet here he stood, tall and stern, his arm protectively looped around Claudia's waist, his voice sharp. "Mom, you've stayed long enough. Claudia and I need our space. It's not healthy having you here anymore." I searched his eyes for softness, but I saw only a hard wall that I could not climb. My suitcase had already been placed by the front door. Claudia didn't meet my gaze. She kept fiddling with her phone. I left without a word because I knew if I spoke, the tears would drown me. That first week on the streets of Sydney was a blur. I had a small pension, but it barely stretched. And with no address, I felt invisible to every service I sought. Under the Parramatta Bridge, I curled against the cold concrete, wrapping my cardigan tighter as the city lights blinked at me like indifferent stars. Cars roared overhead, and I pretended their rhythm was a lullaby. Nights were the hardest. Young people passed by with laughter, sometimes with pity, sometimes with cruel remarks. "Old lady, get a job," one man spat. My bones ached, my heart ached even more. Food came from kindness. Sometimes a cafe worker left me day-old bread. Sometimes a stranger pressed coins into my palm. I learned to survive on instant noodles and silence. Rain was both curse and blessing. It washed me, but it drenched me until I shivered uncontrollably. I held tight to a photograph of my late husband, Malcolm, the man who would have never allowed this fate. He had died 10 years earlier, leaving me with Daniel as my only family. I had believed Daniel would keep me safe. One morning, as I tried to dry my cardigan under the faint sun, I heard a familiar voice calling. "Ellie, is that you?" My heart jumped. It was Margaret, my older sister. We hadn't spoken much over the years. Life and pride had kept us apart. She stood there in a camel-colored coat, her silver hair neatly pinned, her eyes wide with horror. She rushed to me, cupping my face. "My God, Ellie, how long have you been here?" I couldn't answer, only cried into her hands. She pulled me up and said firmly, "You're coming with me, no arguments." Margaret was everything I wasn't in that moment: steady, confident, almost regal. She led me to her car, a sleek black Mercedes, and drove me to a condominium overlooking the harbor. I kept thinking she was just offering me a night's reprieve. But when she opened the door to a beautifully furnished apartment, she said, "This is yours now. The papers are already in your name. And there's a bank transfer waiting for you, $5 million. My knees nearly gave way. I had spent years scrubbing floors, sewing clothes, stretching pennies. To suddenly hold such security felt unreal. I asked her why she would do this for me after so many years apart. Margaret sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because you're my sister, Ellie. Blood may not always feel like comfort, but it is duty. And besides, you deserve peace." Tears burned my eyes again. I whispered, "But I don't deserve this." She smiled gently. "You deserve far more than this. Take it, start again." In those first days, I wandered through the condo like a ghost, unsure how to exist in comfort after sleeping on cardboard. I opened cupboards full of food, lay on a soft bed that cradled my back, and cried from relief. Margaret introduced me to her close friend, Sophia, a lawyer with sharp wit and kind eyes. Eleanor, I want you to meet someone who will help you settle things, Margaret said. Sophia shook my hand firmly. You've been through hell. But from now on, no one touches you or what's yours without going through me. Slowly, I began to reclaim fragments of myself. I shopped for clothes that fit properly, cut my hair short and neat, and even took walks by the harbor where sunlight painted the water gold. Strangers greeted me without pity. I started journaling about those cold nights under the bridge, reminding myself never to forget but also never to be trapped there again. Margaret visited often, bringing laughter and stories. Sometimes we sat by the window with cups of tea, silence between us comfortable and healing. But despite my new beginning, shadows lingered in my heart. At night, I replayed Daniel's words. It's not healthy having you here. Did he mean me? His own mother, did he believe I was a burden? I tried to forgive, but the wound throbbed. One afternoon, as I sat arranging flowers in the kitchen, I whispered aloud, why wasn't I enough for him? The silence that followed was heavier than any bridge. Margaret noticed my heaviness. Ellie, don't keep those thoughts locked up. He abandoned you, yes, but you are not worthless. You are standing, breathing, and that is victory. I nodded. Though my chest ached, I wondered if Daniel even knew I was safe now. Part of me hoped he would come looking not for money, but for his mother. But deep down, I knew the moment he pushed me out, he had already chosen Claudia and ambition over love. Still, life in the condo felt like rebirth. I planted herbs in little pots by the window, cooked warm stews that filled the rooms with homely scents, and sometimes invited neighbors for tea. One woman, Helen, told me, "You're a breath of fresh air in this building." It's nice to see someone with such grace. I smiled shyly, grateful to be seen as more than a tragedy. And yet, beneath the calm, I sensed the storm brewing. Margaret warned me gently, Ellie, you must be careful. People notice wealth. Some might come knocking not to care, but to take. I nodded, though I didn't yet understand the depth of her warning. I was still basking in gratitude, still learning to sleep without fear. But Margaret's words lingered like distant thunder. When I looked back at the bridge from the safety of my balcony one evening, I felt both grief and strength. That place had stripped me, but it had also sharpened me. I knew I could survive anything because I already had. What I didn't know was how soon my strength would be tested again, this time not by the cold streets, but by the blood I once trusted most. The first time Daniel returned, it was a quiet Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen whisking eggs, the sound of a neighbor's radio drifting faintly through the open balcony doors. The knock on my door startled me, sharp and deliberate. When I opened it, there stood my son, my Daniel, with Claudia at his side, her smile just a little too sweet, her eyes scanning the condo as though she already owned it. Mom, Daniel said, his tone coated with false warmth, we've been so worried. We tried to call, but your phone was off. I knew it was a lie. I had the same number, and neither he nor Claudia had once tried to reach me since that night. Still, I swallowed my hurt and stepped aside. Come in, I said softly. They walked through the apartment like surveyors, admiring the view, complimenting the decor, but their eyes lingered not on me but on the possessions. Claudia ran her fingers along the marble countertop as if calculating its worth. Daniel looked at the framed documents. Margaret had arranged the deed, the bank account paperwork, the photographs of me with her and Sophia. His smile tightened. Mom, it's nice. Very nice. I sat them down with tea, trying to hold on to the remnants of motherhood I still clung to. Daniel began, we just want to make sure you're being looked after properly. Claudia's uncle knows a great estate planner. Maybe you should talk to him just to keep things in order. Claudia nodded eagerly, her bracelets clinking as she stirred her tea. Yes, Eleanor, you know at your age it's important to think of legacy. The word made me shiver. Legacy, to them, it was a polite way of saying inheritance. I gave a small smile. Thank you for the concern. But I already have Sophia helping me. Their faces faltered at the name. Claudia forced a laugh. Oh, lawyers can be so rigid. Family knows best, don't you think? I stirred my tea slowly. Meeting her eyes, family is supposed to. After they left, I called Margaret immediately. She sighed and surprised. I knew this would happen. They smelled the money. Sophia came over that same afternoon, her expression sharp as a hawk's. Eleanor, listen to me carefully. Don't sign anything they give you. Don't let them. Bring anyone into this home without my knowledge. They will try. I've seen it before. Her warning proved right within weeks. Daniel and Claudia started visiting regularly, always with smiles and gifts, flowers, chocolates, even a framed family photo of Daniel as a child, as if nostalgia could erase what they had done. But underneath their smiles, I saw hunger. One afternoon, Daniel said casually, Mom, why don't we update your will, just so everything is neat? Claudia and I can help arrange it. I looked at him, my own son, and asked softly, Daniel, are you here for me or for what I have? The silence that followed was my answer. The tactics became bolder. Claudia showed up one day with a man in a gray suit, introducing him as an advisor. He carried documents in a leather folder, his pen all. Mrs. Thompson, if you could just review these papers, I stopped him. Did Sophia approve these? He hesitated. Claudia jumped in. Oh, there's no need to bother your lawyer with everything, Eleanor. This is just routine. I felt the old tremor of fear, but also the steel I had forged under that bridge. I won't sign a thing without Sophia present. Please leave. Their smiles cracked. The men shuffled uncomfortably, and soon they left in a huff. Later, when I told Sophia, her face hardened. They're trying to make you look incompetent so they can take control. We'll document everything. She began keeping records, logging visits, even advising me to install cameras. I did, reluctantly, but it gave me peace. Every conversation, every attempt was saved. The next scheme was subtler. They began planting seeds of doubt about my mind. Claudia said in a falsely gentle tone, Mom, you've been forgetting things lately, haven't you? Like the other day, you didn't remember Daniel's birthday. Daniel nodded solemnly, as if confirming it. We're just worried about early dementia. My chest tightened with anger. I forgot because no one invited me to his birthday dinner. I snapped. The room fell silent, and for the first time, I saw Claudia's mask slip, her eyes sharp, calculating. One evening, Margaret came by and found me trembling. They're trying to paint me as unstable, I whispered. She wrapped her arm around me. Ellie, you are stronger than them. And you're not alone. Let them play their games. We're ready. The games grew uglier. One afternoon, Sophia stormed into my condo with papers in her hand. Eleanor, look at this, she said, laying down a copy of a will I had never seen. My heart froze as I read the lines. It claimed I had signed over half my estate to Daniel and Claudia. The signature at the bottom was mine, or at least a frightening imitation. This is forgery, I said, my voice shaking. Sophia nodded grimly, and a sloppy one. We'll expose them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the length of my condo, staring out at the lights of Sydney Harbor. The betrayal felt like knives pressed against my skin. My own child, the boy I nursed, the boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged, now forging my hand to steal what wasn't his. I pressed my forehead against the glass and whispered, Why, Daniel, why? Margaret called me the next morning, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Ellie, I've already contacted an investigator. They'll trace the forgery, and we'll take it to court. Let them try to crush you this time. You will stand taller. In the weeks that followed, I played my part quietly, documenting every interaction, saving every letter, recording every voice message. Daniel's tone grew more desperate in them. Mom, we're only trying to help. Why won't you trust us? Claudia's messages dripped with false sweetness. Eleanor, darling, think of us as your true family. Don't let outsiders like Sophia get in the way. Each time I listened, I felt my resolve hardened. There was one visit I will never forget. Daniel stood at my balcony looking out at the view, his voice low. "You've changed, Mom. You used to need me. Now you act like a stranger. Don't forget family is all you've got." I looked at him, the city lights reflecting in his face, and replied, "Family is not who abandons you when you're cold. Family is who lifts you from under a bridge." He flinched, then stormed out. When Sophia filed the official complaint with the authorities, I felt a mix of dread and relief. Margaret sat with me that night, holding my hand as the city hummed outside. "They will push harder now," she warned. "But remember, Ellie, truth is our shield." I nodded, though my heart thudded painfully. The storm had only begun. The forged documents were in circulation, whispers were spreading, and soon the battle would leave the quiet of my condo and march into the courtroom where truth and lies would collide. And I, once discarded under a bridge, would be forced to stand tall before everyone, including the son who had once been my whole world. The day I walked into the courtroom, I felt every one of my 74 years pressing on my shoulders, but I also carried something heavier than age, truth. Margaret stood by my side, her hand firm on my arm, and Sophia strode ahead with a calmness that steadied me. Daniel and Claudia were already seated at their table, dressed in expensive suits that looked more like armor than clothing. Claudia flicked her hair back and gave me a fleeting smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel didn't look at me at all. The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched low on her nose, called the session to order. Papers shuffled, murmurs died down, and the weight of justice filled the room. Sophia rose first, her voice clear and steady as she outlined the case. The forged will, the attempts at coercion, the manipulation. Each word landed like a stone, building a wall of evidence that I could almost lean on. When Daniel's lawyer stood, his words twisted like vines. "Mrs. Thompson is elderly. She has been influenced by outsiders, by her wealthy sister and this lawyer against her own family. Our clients, Daniel and Claudia, were merely trying to ensure her well-being." I clenched my hands together, biting back the urge to cry out. Outsiders. Margaret had saved me from the streets. Sophia had protected me when my own son had schemed against me. How dare they call them outsiders? Sophia began presenting the evidence. The forged documents were laid out before the judge, and I watched her eyes narrow as she compared the signatures. The handwriting expert testified next, explaining in precise detail how the strokes of the E and N in my name didn't match my real writing. The cameras in my condo were shown, footage playing of Daniel and Claudia trying to push papers toward me, my voice clearly saying, "I won't sign anything without Sophia." Then came the part that shattered whatever illusion of innocence Daniel might have still held. The investigator Margaret had hired stepped forward with phone records and messages, proving Claudia had contacted a known document forger weeks before the supposed will was signed. Gasps filled the courtroom. Daniel's face drained of color, Claudia's lips tightened, and I felt the first taste of justice ripple through me. When it was my turn to speak, my legs trembled, but I forced myself to stand. The judge asked gently, "Mrs. Thompson, would you like to share your perspective?" I nodded, clutching the edge of the stand. "My name is Eleanor Thompson," I began, my voice wavering before finding strength. "I was born in Hobart in 1951. I worked hard all my life, raised my son after my husband passed, and thought love was enough. But last year, my son and his wife abandoned me under a bridge like refuse. I slept in the cold, ate from scraps, and thought my life was over. My sister found me and gave me shelter, and her friend Sophia gave me protection. Since then, my son has come not with love, but with papers, lies, and schemes. I may be 74, but I am not blind, not mad, and not disposable. They say family protects you. Well, sometimes family betrays you, and sometimes strangers once thought of as outsiders are the only ones who save you." The silence in the room was thick. I could see even the judge's eyes soften, though her mouth stayed firm. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Claudia stared straight ahead. My chest heaved, but I felt lighter than I had in years. When the ruling came, it was swift and sharp. The court finds the documents presented by Daniel and Claudia Mitchell to be fraudulent. The alleged will is null and void. Furthermore, this case will be referred to the district attorney's office for investigation into forgery and attempted fraud. Custody of Eleanor Thompson's assets remains solely with her. Costs are to be paid by the defendants. I closed my eyes and breathed. Margaret squeezed my hand so tightly I thought she might break it, whispering, "You've won, Ellie. You've won." Sophia leaned over with the faintest of smiles. "Truth stands tallest," she murmured. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue, but the judge's gavel ended it. As we left the courtroom, reporters swarmed, their cameras flashing. I shielded my face, but Sophia addressed them. This case is a reminder that age does not equal weakness. Eleanor Thompson stood against betrayal and won. Her words echoed in my chest like a song. In the months that followed, Daniel and Claudia grew quiet. They accepted a settlement that released any claim to my assets, though I knew it wasn't out of remorse, but survival. I didn't see them again, though sometimes at night I wondered if Daniel thought of me, if somewhere inside him the boy who once loved his mother still stirred. But I no longer let those thoughts consume me. My focus shifted elsewhere. With Sophia's guidance, I transferred the majority of my assets into the Eleanor Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting older women in crisis. It wasn't just about money, it was about dignity, about ensuring no woman my age would ever feel the bite of cold concrete under a bridge again. We hosted community days where women could gather without judgment, free workshops teaching skills from finance to gardening, and one-on-one consultations to rebuild lives. I found healing in every face that walked through our doors. Women who had been silenced by family, women who had been abandoned, women who thought they had no voice. Together, we stitched our stories into a tapestry of survival and rebirth. I was no longer just Eleanor, the woman cast aside. I was Eleanor, the woman who built something from ashes. On the anniversary of the court ruling, we planted a community garden outside the foundation's headquarters. As I pressed seeds into the soil, I thought of the bridge, the cold nights, the betrayal, and the courtroom. I whispered to the earth, "This is my legacy." Margaret stood beside me, smiling proudly. Sophia gave a small nod, her eyes glinting with quiet approval. The past had scarred me, yes, but it had also carved out space for something greater. My life was no longer defined by what Daniel tried to take, but by what I chose to give. And in that choice, I found peace. Moral lesson: true family is not always by blood, but by love. Strength blooms when betrayal is met with courage and purpose. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share with friends, and comment below what lesson you've learned.